Welcome back to SportsVibe. We just had a extensive conversation on college football realignment and what it means for everything from, the athletes to the TV deals to, college football and other sports. But we're going to be shifting back to our NFL preview series now. Two more divisions to cover this week. We have the NFC North and the AFC South up today. And then when we do our episode next time, we're going to finish with the AFC North and NFC South. So don't want to miss that. Football season is right around the corner. We just had the Hall of Fame game between the Jets and the Browns. So preseason is going to be in full swing next week with all 32 teams. Um, NFC North and AFC South, two interesting divisions. I
The
guess we can start
Detroit Lions will
start
win
the
the
NFC North.
NFC North.
Yeah. It might not be as hot of a take as people think. I think they will too, because the Vikings were very
Hmm.
inconsistent. They won 13-4, but they won a lot of games by one score or
The,
less,
the,
and
the
their
Vikings were
luck ran out.
11 and 1 last season. The Vikings were 11 and 1 last season and won.
11 and
That is
0 in the
never
regular
happening
season.
again. That is
They were
never happening again.
Yeah,
they were
it's gonna
11
catch
and
up with
0 in
them.
the regular season. Yeah,
Yeah, the
they
reason
were
I said
11 and
11
0.
and 1 is because that last one bit them in the butt in the
Yeah,
playoffs.
yeah.
Against the
I
Giants.
think
Yeah.
the Vikings, don't sleep on them. They have, I think a lot of people are favoring the Lions. I am favoring the Vikings just because their offense is proven.
Their
I'm
offense
sure
is pretty good still.
their
Yeah.
offense is proven, yes, and their defense. I mean, people forget that in the second half of games, a lot of last year, they were pretty good. I mean, like we saw in the Colts game, they hold them to
That's
Yeah,
three
true.
points and made
a
the comeback,
whopping
right?
33 points against the damn Colts in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
And then they
Yeah,
locked
the
them down.
second half, yeah, they were inconsistent. Against New England, I only think they allowed 10 points or something in the second half. You know, against a lot of other teams, their second half work was really good. Obviously the Green Bay game, I think we can point to a lot of that. Week 17, that was that really bit them in the butt. Other than that, this team held Aaron Rodgers to 7 points. In the first game of the year. Admittedly, it was the first, and but the point is, they're inconsistent, but when they did play consistent, they were pretty good. You know, so I think I mean, like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think if they can, if now they have Brian Flores, who is an architect of so many of the good Patriots defenses. After Matt, when Matt Patricia was there, admittedly the Super Bowl was the big screw up against the Philadelphia, but after that, that defense was good. He knows how to, utilize his personnel really well. They have a
Flores
lot of good
especially
players.
Flores especially knows how to get the best out of his linebackers. Like
Oh yeah, linebackers. We have Dante Hightower, Jamie Collins, Kyle Van
Kyle
Noy.
Van
You
Noy.
had
We had a
so
Landon
many.
Roberts too.
Landon Roberts. Yeah, there are so many good players, and that Vikings linebacker core. Of course, Eric Kendricks. Got cut. He's in LA now. But other than that, if they could find some good players at that position, there's no reason to think that this defense could be top 15, maybe even top 10. That all depends. He's good. Brian Flores is very good. I mean, like, Miami. I mean, he took a team that was 5-11 to 10-6 the next year.
I think honestly, I think within the Miami situation, like Flores got screwed. That's what I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah.
But then even then, he took that team to 10-6, and I think he only lost to the New England once.
Yeah.
That's
I,
but
I
like
would
to
have
do
I would have
that,
liked if under the Dolphins leadership, if the Patriots beat them one more time, specifically one game in 2019, which
yeah, the
still
damn
gives
Gasicki
me
game, the
which
Gasicki game.
still
Yeah.
haunts me. But
But
aside
on the other
from
side, we know that his defenses are really good. I mean, like last year, we didn't get to see the real Pittsburgh defense because of T.J. Watt being so banged up. The first half of the year. After that, they played really really well. Much better. Um, and him being on that team, that helped him a lot. And look at Alex Highsmith, right? You got what, 4 years, $68 million,
he got a
and
good deal for himself.
you got a great deal, and that's partly because of Brian Force's work with linebackers and edge rushers like
No,
him.
he knows how to scheme on he knows
He
how to
knows how to
scheme on like
scheme.
insides, outsides, and then 3-4s and then 4-3 setups. So like I think
Mm-hmm.
Brian Flores like should not really have a problem with commanding the linebackers unit.
And he might have very well been a head coach this year with Arizona. You know, I mean, like they were, you know, I think they were in this like top 3 or top 5. You know, Arizona was, you know, they had him in their top 3 or top 5. He was, you know, very much almost a head coach, and you know, of course, the Miami situation was really bad. But you know, as a defensive coach, you know, there aren't many questions surrounding him. I mean, like, you know, sure, he's not dealing with, you know, like, you know, he's not dealing with like some of the big names that, you know, he had in New England. Of course, Patrick Peterson left, Eric Kendricks got cut, and you know, they had to, you know, Harrison Smith only, you know, is staying just because he took, you know, a big pay cut. But and if he can, you know, if his players can stay healthy the entire year, you know, that defense is going to do, you know, good things. And so I have them as my
That's kind of
favorites
how
to
it
win the
works for
division.
every single team, though. If you stay healthy,
Mhm.
you're good.
Yeah.
There's
But
more
with
than
his
just
scheme,
health.
yeah, but some, yeah, I mean, like some coaches are much better schemers than others. Like, you know, and I think, you know, Brian Flores is one of those top guys. So I think the Vikings are going to win the division just because, you know, they're more proven. And
And the
speaking of
Lions.
Detroit, yeah,
I'm
Detroit,
still taking Detroit to win.
yeah.
It's
So
gonna be
their
interesting.
offense is, yeah,
I think they're
their
making the
offense, you know,
playoffs for
at
sure,
times
though.
was, you know,
Oh no, they're
I think,
they
yeah,
should have made the playoffs last year if it weren't for the Seahawks win.
yeah.
Right, right.
And you know, I meant like even like so for yeah, I think Detroit, they were also very inconsistent on both sides of the ball, you know, and like you had, you know, games where they were, you know, lights out great. Like, you
They
know, I
had
think
one of the best offenses in the league.
oh
Actually.
yeah, they did. But then against, you know, against the team, against teams like New England, against teams like Carolina, they could not move the ball at all. I mean,
Yeah, but
like New
you
England,
forget. In week 2, they went toe to toe with Philadelphia, and Philadelphia only
that was
Oh
lost.
week
yeah,
1. That was
that
week
was week
1. That was
one.
week 1.
Oh, week one. Sorry
Hmm.
about that.
The Vikings
Yeah.
actually got themselves blown out a
Mhm.
week later. But yeah, the Lions held up, and I
Yeah.
was like, are the Eagles gonna be like okay this year? And I was almost like joking about it.
Hmm.
And I was like, you guys
Yeah.
almost lost to the Lions, and then they went
Hmm.
on and made it
Yeah.
to the Super Bowl. But anyway,
Yeah.
so your point is
Uh-huh.
Lions, yeah,
Yeah,
they did
we, you
definitely
know,
hold up well.
there were a lot, there were like a lot of bright spots, you know, for the Lions offense last year. Nobody denies that. They were good. But against good defenses, that team just, you know, wasn't playing well. I mean, like, you know, sure, you had the Lions game, you know, the Jets game, they you know, they only put up 20 points, you know. But, you know, I think they're a good offensive team. It's just that they have to, you know, against better defenses, I think they just have to prove a little bit more. You know, I know Buffalo's in that, you know, category, and they gave up, you know, 25 last year to the Lions, but against teams like New England who just shut them down, yeah, you can't have that. And speaking of defense, Lions defense, first half of the year, it was playing like, you know, like horrible. Like, you know, they couldn't stop a fly. Second half of the year, they were, you know, great. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I didn't think,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, like, sure, the Carolina game was bad, you know, the Detroit,
I think
the Bills
I think
game.
my favorite Lions game from last season was against the Packers in the last week. Like that was by
That
far.
was
Yeah.
that was great.
Yeah,
The
they've
Packers and
proven that, you
Saints,
know, they
wow.
can, you know, this, you know, this defense is, you know, if it, I think, you know, they admittedly they didn't have, you know, they should have, you know, have drafted a few more defensive players. I mean, like everybody knew that, you know, I mean, like taking a linebacker in, you know, the first round, obviously not,
No,
you
no,
know, the best idea.
I think the linebacker was a good pick. The one thing I question was, I mean, I'm not saying
Yeah.
Gibbs isn't a bad player. Like Gibbs is good, but like,
He is electric, you know, but
like,
that's, you know,
but like
It
running
seemed a bit
backs,
high, but yeah.
first round picks these days, not exactly a great
yeah,
idea.
you have to, you know, be completely justified. But like I know Bijan Robinson, you know, I mean, like he was predicted
I
to go in
think
the first round
that
for
was
good
pretty good.
reason.
Yeah.
But Jameer Gibbs, I mean, like I had him, you know, going in the top, you know, going inside the top 50, not even the top 30.
So
So,
you
you know,
had him
but
as like maybe like a high second round pick then.
a low second rounder. Yeah. So yeah, closer towards the top. Yeah, high second round pick. Yeah, you're right. Closer towards the top. You know, I think Detroit could have very well grabbed him at 34 if, you know, because of their trade back with Arizona. So I think, yeah, they could have picked him up there. But anyway, he's on their team now. It doesn't really much make sense to, you know, go back and talk about what could have done. But I mean, like, sure, he's not as good as Bijan, but he's still a very, very good receiving back, you know. Everybody heard the Alvin Kamara comparisons for good reason. I mean, like, you know, basically a carbon copy. I just think Gibbs is faster and has a little bit more acceleration than
and
Kamara.
Lions also have one of the most underrated receivers in the league right now. Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Amon-Ra St. Brown. He is very good. He's a very good route runner. And, they're getting Jameson Williams in the second half of the season. Sure, there's been reports coming out saying that he's, he hasn't had chemistry with Goff. He's, kind of, been struggling to learn the offense. But, I think those rests can be, those can be put to rest after a few weeks. I think maybe around week 9, week 10, week 11, that's when we'll really start to see him, absolutely emerge onto the scene. So he's definitely worth, he's definitely worth the investment they made into him last year. I mean, like they drafted Williams and Gibbs in the same exact spot, like 12th overall. So, they're showing a lot of trust in, those players, their speed and, their abilities to make big plays, to, build an offense that's, that can definitely compete. They can do that. They just have to, be a little bit more consistent is all. I mean, the Eagles game, right? We saw that it was, 24-14 at half, I think. And, it was 38-21 or something, before most of their points were scored, in the fourth quarter. If they can just make that a little bit more consistent, yeah, they can definitely win the North. I have no doubts in that. Will they though? They just have to stay consistent, stay healthy. That's all.
I think regardless of that, I think all three of us will at least agree the Lions are definitely a playoff team. Super Bowl caliber, I don't know, but playoff team.
They're playoff caliber, yeah. Not play. They're playoff caliber. I'm not sure if they're a playoff team yet, just because there's so. We know who the top 4 are probably going to be in the NFC. Yeah, we just don't know the other 3.
Eagles, Niners.
There's the 49ers.
Eagles, San Francisco. You have
whoever in North.
You have either you're probably going to have either Minnesota or Detroit here. And then in the South, I just don't.
NFC South.
That's kind of a wash.
NFC South.
We'll get to that. But,
yeah, we'll get to that.
And then the Cowboys probably first wild card. And then I feel like it kind of comes down to the Giants, Seahawks, and Lions, like 3 teams for those last 2 wild card spots. Yeah. So I think that could be
maybe the Cowboys if they finally decide to do something. But
they're probably going to be the first wild card, but then it depends on what they actually do with that spot in the playoffs.
I still have faith in Detroit. Because
me too. Their culture is good. If they could start the season the way they ended it, I think they'll be more than fine. So yeah.
Here's where it starts. Here's where good team and good culture starts. It starts when you have either an owner who cares about the team, or when you have an incompetent owner who stays out of meddling with team affairs. It's about time the Ford family learned this. You would know. Any Lions fan would tell you, post Barry Sanders, even though they had Calvin Johnson on their team, the Ford family was a horrific disaster in ownership for the Lions. Horrific. It's about time they learn that they should not screw with the team, just let themselves build up. So that's where it first starts. And then the second thing, Dan Campbell has to be the most energetic man in Detroit. This includes the Red Wings, and this includes the Pistons. Dan Campbell has brought something to the Lions that hasn't been seen in quite some time. Heart. Dan Campbell is that guy.
It's like Brian Daboll, all over again, kind of, but even more energetic, possibly.
That might honestly not be a bad comparison. That might honestly not be a bad comparison. But you saw the week 5. Yeah, I think it was week 5 against the Vikings when the Vikings made that game-winning kick. He cried in the press conference. You know why? Because he cares about the team. Right? Dan Campbell is that guy. And let's not forget, the Lions, they missed the playoffs just barely because one of the Seahawks win, and 2, I think they were 1-5 or 1-6 earlier on in the season.
1-6, yeah.
1-6.
It's tough to turn that around.
They still turned it around. Let's not just gust over that. They still turned it around. They had a damn good season. Even though the Lions last made the playoffs in 2014 against the Cowboys, with that pass interference call, which everyone seems to forget about. This was still probably the best season the Lions have ever had, because now they have a solid foundation of what they can build upon.
Right.
So I really like the future of the Lions. I think the Vikings window is closing. So that's why I
Yeah,
take to win
the
the NFC
Vikings,
North.
yeah, they have a good offense.
And
Like they have Justin Jefferson, they have TJ Hawkinson, they have I really like KJ Osborne too, but they're gonna be missing Devin Cook most likely. But I mean, solid offense, pretty good defense. They have like Neil Hunter, I think, who's still on the team, Harrison Smith, obviously, but I don't know. Yeah, I feel like the Lions are more on the upswing. The Vikings are kind of more on the downswing, and their window's closing. I think you're spot on, and I think
well,
the NFL knows it too.
speaking of teams in the downswing, let's talk about the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah. Mhm.
It's a big question mark on both sides. I just don't know. I mean, like nobody knows right now.
I don't know because like what
It can really go
Jordan
either
Love
way.
Jordan Love was drafted in 2020, and this will be like the first time he actually gets a good chance on the football field. Like that game against Kansas City in the COVID year does not count because that's a very small sample size. Like this is like the first time
Right.
like Jordan Love is actually getting on the spotlight in like 4 years, and I've like this is the end of his rookie contract, and he's essentially been Aaron Rodgers' clipboard manager for 3 years. So it's like, what do we have to see of him? Like, if he has one good season, is that really enough to make a good mark on who Jordan Love could be? Or if he has one god awful season, likewise, is that still
Right.
something to be determined? Now, of course, you could argue him being Aaron Rodgers' understudy for 3 years, he probably learned a thing or two about good quarterback play, except for the playoffs when it matters, of course. But we haven't seen any inclination of proof of that. And
I mean, like, sure, the Philly game, everybody
Yeah,
brings
he
up the Philly
wasn't.
game for
Mhm.
good. I mean, like,
He showed
he was
flashes
he
in
was
that game for
good. He
sure.
was like, yeah, he was, I think, good, but not, great in that Philly game. He definitely,
Right.
he missed like I think two throws towards the end, but I mean, like, those are garbage time. I mean, like, he was still pretty good. He put the team in the game where they shouldn't have been.
yeah, and
So
of
I
course,
think,
Green Bay has pieces that Jordan Love could use. I mean, of course, like
mhm,
there's Aaron Jones who's on my dynasty football team. I'm in my dynasty
mhm.
fantasy league, so hopefully he gets me a lot of points. And also, there's also what's his
Yeah,
name,
but
Romeo
AJ
Dobbs.
AJ Dill. Yeah, we have, there's
Romeo
that's a
Dobbs,
good
yeah.
that's a great receiver core, but like you have a
Yeah,
big
Christian
target.
I
Watson
don't know
too.
about
Yeah,
great because let's not use the word great here. This is a very,
mhm.
very raw,
Young,
unproven wide receiver core.
unexperienced.
Hmm.
Yeah, they have the potential to be great, and I think
Any,
nobody doubts that.
Yeah,
anyone
but
does.
they are young.
Anyone has the
That's true.
potential to be great. It's all about what you do for yourself, though, to make it matter.
Hmm. Yeah. Hmm.
But
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
the
think
Packers.
now their
I
defense,
mean,
which
honestly,
has
I would
yeah.
put Green Bay in last in the division. I'd put the Bears at third. I really would.
I doubt that. I mean, like,
Mm,
The Packers
I
just
don't
have more
know.
talent all around. I mean, like the Bears. I mean, like they don't have that many big names. I mean, like
That's
they have
yeah.
three.
Well, you don't necessarily need big names to be a good team. I mean,
I
Arnav
mean, yeah, but like they're I mean,
That's
those
true.
those are closely correlated. I mean, like I mean, like I don't know who else the Bears have other than they have
Justin
Justin
Fields.
Fields, DJ
I mean,
Moore, Tremaine Edmonds.
let's be
Right.
honest here.
They just
Like
added Yannick
trading for Chase,
Ngakwe, right?
like
To the
trading for
Bears.
Mhm.
Chase
So
Claypool is one thing, but trading him for a second round pick, I don't know what the hell the
No,
McCaskill
no, no.
thinking
You
there.
no, you're not trading it for a for a second round pick. You trade him for a first rounder, basically. You traded him for the 32nd overall pick.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Essentially, he was a
that's
first rounder. Yeah, like
that's that's a that was Omar Khan's masterclass.
in anyone's sane mind, Chase Claypool is not worth a first round pick.
Well, to be fair, at that time, right? I mean, like to be fair, at that time, Bears were 3-3. We didn't know how bad they would be the rest of the year. Pittsburgh was right to deal him off and get a first rounder in return. I mean, like if things had gone the other way, that might have been
No,
like
no, I'm saying Pittsburgh is lucky to have gotten a first
oh
round pick,
yeah, they, yeah.
mm,
or well, this is before Chicago overhauled its management and its GM. So Pittsburgh was lucky to find a stupid trading partner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you mean? But what do you mean like changing management? I mean, like they had Ryan Poles. I mean, like he was the one that made the trade. I mean, obviously not his best day, but he had to we had to rebound from that, and he did that by getting the Panthers trade done. So I mean, like, remember this, if Justin Fields, I think if he's more consistent passing the ball, they'll be a very good team. They're not going to be like 13-4 type, but they could end up with I think maybe a winning record or just a little bit under 500.
I don't see a winning record.
Maybe like a little
a little
under.
bit under 500.
But
Yeah.
I still honestly think that they could finish above the Packers because like
They have the potential. Yeah, if everything breaks right, they could.
They have potential. Yeah, all the teams have the potential, but this team, I mean, like don't sleep on Matt Eberflus, right? I mean, he's a good defensive coordinator with especially Indianapolis, right? But like he coached Shaquille Leonard there, Kenny Moore, and Rodney McLeod, I think as well too. So he's good. So I think he has a definite he can definitely lead them to be a top 10 defense sometime soon. But speaking of
the Bears, I don't know, but
soon.
But at least an improvement from where they were, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would think so too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So about the Packers defense, right? They have 9 first rounders on that pick. They have 9 first rounders on that defense, and they were like
it really
bottom
shows you how
half
much they believe in that defense then.
Yeah, they keeping Joe Barry when better options were available. That's a huge question mark. I mean, like you had Brian Flores, you had Vic Fangio available. Keeping Joe Barry, that's just. I mean, sure he was good too. I mean, sure he was good 2021, but last year it's just everything went south for them, especially defensively. I mean, that's why they lost the Lions game. Can't make a stop when the season's on the line.
You say that like it was a bad thing. That was a great game. And a glory. No, honestly, like I'm.
It was good. It was good for Detroit.
I love making fun of the Packers. I really do, but I think them losing last season against the Lions, that might have honestly been the best thing that happened to the Packers.
Well, that's probably going to be the worst thing for the Patriots too, because Aaron Rodgers.
No. I'll explain. No. I'm explaining why for the Packers solely. Like. Honestly, I'm not too worried about the Jets because as long as you're the Jets, you will suck. But but in the sense that it's about time that the Packers realized that their championship window had closed. Really, their championship window closed when they lost to the 49ers in Lambeau. That same 49ers team that didn't even score a touchdown. Like an offensive touchdown.
Offensive or defensive. They
scored on special teams in the NFC division round.
They scored all 13 points on special teams, 7 on kicks, and then 6 on the Hufanga.
I mean, come on, like if there's like everyone's like saying, oh, the Aaron Rodgers era was wasted, which is kind of true. That only one Super Bowl in how long has
that was early on? Like, I mean, it's not like the Patriots
when he was drafted by Green Bay in 2005. Like only one Super Bowl championship in 18 years. Like if you watch the Green Bay Packers play in the playoffs, not only was their defense atrocious, their special teams it made you want to puke, but it's about damn time the Packers just went with this overhaul thing, because it's better to realize your window is done and rebuild rather than pretend you're competitive year after year and then your team turns into a landscape of hell. I mean, going back to hockey for a second, the Detroit Red Wings in the early 2000s were a proud, great team. Like Hall of Famers everywhere, elite play, elite goal making, elite forwards, everything. And then they lost the Stanley Cup final in 09. 09. To the Penguins. Coincidentally, they beat the Penguins the year prior. But that was when their moment truly started to fade. I mean, they were still good for 2010 and 2011, but that management, like Mike Ilitch, Ken Holland, they instead of realizing the window is closing, they try to keep that window open by constantly bringing in new veterans and everyone, and is that eventually making the salary cap just awful to manage, having albatross contracts, and the Detroit Red Wings, they kept their playoff streak alive. Like they went 25 straight years going into the playoffs, which is an amazing record. But if you're doing it for the record, you're clearly not doing it for the team. You're clearly not doing it for the fans. And you're definitely not doing it for the winning. Like, you're just caring about some stupid streak. So if Detroit had realized that their window was finally done within like 2011, 2012, and then they just sold off their assets, traded away everything, and then rebuilt the farm, like rebuilt the prospects through the draft and everything. The Detroit Red Wings would probably be a much better team than they could be for this next season. But like for example, like 2016 was the last time they made the playoffs, and if you've seen the Red Wings, they have been awful from 2017 till really about last year. Like, the Red Wings were a perpetual bottom 5 team in the league because they were trying to keep their window. They were trying to force their windows open when really it was closed. It's the same thing with the Pittsburgh Penguins right now. I could talk about them more, but I'm going to stay on track for the NFL at this point. So instead of Green Bay trying to postpone their Napoleon moment, like holding on to the king of the crown to their last moment before they're truly exiled, it's great. You finally have not necessarily overhauled, but you finally realized you're done. You're history. You've had your moment. Now get out. Like, in that sense, and that's like they got for a 40-year-old quarterback who is, I'm not saying improving, but like, who's certainly had character issues, and has had his moments of frustration and everything, especially within the last 3 years of the Packers. I'd say good part on you.
I still think, I still think that, the Packers should have gotten an additional, conditional pick, just, in say like 2024, 2025 or something, in case he plays more than 2 years, just like make sure they got a good return. But, okay, let's go with our final things.
Sure. NFC North.
No, like last thing I want to touch upon here, like the last season when Rodgers played, was without Devontae Adams, of course. Like, if you couldn't, like, I think the Packers should have just overhauled after the 2022 offseason itself. Like, when you traded away Devontae to the Raiders, if you could not win with Devontae Adams, what makes you think you're going to win without him?
Right.
Exactly. So the Packers really should have done this overhaul like a year prior. I mean, and you definitely would have had a desperate suitor in the Broncos. They were willing to pony up 3 first-round picks. Packers said no, and then they got their man Russell Wilson. Well,
to be fair, Russell Wilson is like 7 or 8 years younger, and he doesn't have.
That is true.
Yeah,
that is true. But
he doesn't have the carries.
But that's the point. Like, when you hold on to your assets too long, like things like that, you don't realize how fragile your window is until it's truly gone. Look at my Bruins right now. Like, it's not going to be pretty for the next couple of years. So it's about damn time the Packers overhauled this, and I finally commend them for doing that. You should have done this sooner, but it's about time you recognize the problem. So good on you.
So final division predictions, I have Minnesota, Detroit, Green Bay. I just think, they're not gonna, they're good, they're better coached, have a little bit more talent, and then Chicago. But that's definitely gonna change in a few years.
I got the NFC North champs for the first time in I have no idea how long.
It's
I honestly don't remember I don't know the last time the Lions won the division. The Detroit Lions will win the NFC North.
Wow.
Followed in second by the Minnesota Vikings. Followed on third, the Chicago Bears. And in dead last, the Green Bay Packers.
All right. And I think the Vikings still like edge the Lions out. I think both teams make the playoffs. I'm gonna go Vikings, Lions, Packers, and then Bears. I do also feel like Packers do have more talent, and I think Jordan Love could keep them interestingly competitive, but at least in the hunt. And then for a little bit longer, and the Bears are going to be a few games behind. So that's how I see that shaking up. Wait, what? Oh
Floor and ceiling records.
if you want, but we should probably get into the AFC South. Right?
Detroit's floor, I'll put him at 8 and 9. Ceiling, I'll give him 11 and 6. Minnesota, I'd say along the same lines, because you're definitely not going to go 13 and 4 again. I'd bet my Apple Watch on it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Chicago, I'd say floor, probably 4 and 13. Ceiling, I'd give 7 and 10.
Yeah.
And
something like that.
The Packers, again, the floor, like, I really don't think that. I mean, come on, the Packers went 4 and 12 during a Brett Favre season, and they still kept it around for a while. So, like, I'd still say the floor for the Packers is 4 and 12, and
13,
and their ceiling is probably around like 6 and 11, maybe.
Okay. I think mine. Detroit, 4 is gonna be 5-12. Ceiling is gonna be around 10-7. You know, I just
5-12. Wow.
5 and 12. It's like the whole line.
that's I mean, like, they're good. I just don't know if they're going to be consistent enough to, you know, to play at the level that, you know, to play at the level to compete. You know,
put this on record, Dan Campbell. Use Kapil.
They are not going
motivation
to
to
go
the
yeah,
NFC
but
North.
yeah, that's a floor. I mean, like, I'm not saying they will go. I mean, like, I think
But
I see them probably going
it could happen.
same as last year, 9 and 8, 10 and 7. One of those two.
Yeah, something like that.
Minnesota, floor is 8 and 9. Ceiling is 13 and 4. Not saying they'll go either, but, you know,
I mean,
think if I was to do a record prediction,
they did
11-6 or 12-5.
That's about right.
11-6, 12-5 is my record. You know, one of those two. Green Bay, floor 5-12. Ceiling is probably around 10 and 7. I think 8 and 9, 9 and 8 is probably
something like
around where
they
they're
might
going to
end
be.
up where they're.
Then Chicago, floor is same as last year, 3-14. Ceiling's probably 7-10, 8 and 9. I think they're probably going to go 6 and 11. You know, which should be, you know, it's going to take a little bit more work for them to get back into the top tier where they, you know, where they want to be. So yeah,
Right.
so I think
yeah, I guess I should go. So I guess we'll start with the Lions. I don't know. So ceiling could be like 11-6, floor maybe like 6 and 11. So they'll probably be right in the middle, like 9-8, 10-7, probably 10-7. Packers, floor like 5 and 12, ceiling 9 and 8. Vikings ceiling 12 and 5, floor they're still pretty good, maybe like 8 and 9, 9 and 8. And then the Bears, floor like 4 and 13, ceiling. Yeah, somewhere around like 7, 10, maybe 8, 9, something like that. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel like that's gonna shake out. I mean, we're only down to 3:30, so you guys want to just do that for the AFC South too, and call it a wrap? Because I feel like there's or do you want to like do another one for that?
Well, I guess we got a couple minutes right now. Like we were talking about like Detroit, like you guys were saying Detroit is playoff caliber. I said they are going to the playoffs. So like, and
but now with the recent injuries, do you have any problem with that? You know, they lost their 2 best wideouts now. They're not their 2 best, but 2 of their wideouts. You know, is there any you know thoughts now? Changes in thoughts?
I still don't really think so because the rest of the NFC North is fairly weak. So, but like, I mean, like, I personally think the Detroit Lions will make the NFC North. I mean, will win the NFC North. Clearly, you guys don't. But like, I guess if we were to end it off, like, amongst the other NFC teams, fighting for a wild card spot, which 3 teams do you think hold the biggest threat to the Lions? I would say, for the wild card specifically, because these teams will definitely not win the division. The Giants, the Seahawks, and I will say the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think
if those 3 teams all make the wild card,
because
they could leave the Lions out. Like, I could see that.
Anyone could win that garbage division, the NFC South. Literally anyone.
Right.
Yeah. So, I think it would probably have to be Philly, San Fran, Minnesota, and New Orleans. I just think they're
they have more experience.
And And then wild
Philadelphia
card.
is definitely winning the NFC East. So
Yeah.
we're just
yeah.
counting specifically seeds 5 through 7.
I think
Right.
wild card is probably going to be Dallas, Seattle. I think once again, and then if maybe Detroit or New York, maybe one of those
It's gonna
two.
be interesting. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I don't know. It
Mhm.
depends on if
I
Geno
meant,
Smith
you
has
know,
a
we
big
are
season
sleep.
again.
We
So
might be, I meant if the Rams are healthy too, maybe them. Maybe I'm not saying they will, but maybe them.
I forgot about the Rams. They
Mhm.
could do something. They could.
They could do
potentially
something, yeah, maybe,
Washington, but I don't see it.
Mhm.
It's gonna be
Yeah,
tough in that division
potential.
too.
Yeah, I think it's just gonna be a 4-team race.
I
It's
don't
more
have
like
any
the Cowboys are probably gonna be in for sure, and
Yeah.
then
I
the
think
Giants,
I think
Lions,
the 4-team
Seahawks
race is
are
gonna
gonna be
be
in line for
between
those spots.
yeah, it's gonna be between LA, Detroit, what do you call it? New York, and then either Washington or even Carolina. I think they have the good pieces. So or yeah,
Or
I think they have
Seattle,
good
yeah.
pieces. Or
The,
Detroit, yeah.
the NFC
Yeah.
Wild Card race will certainly be a Hunger Games. It'll
Mhm.
be a
Yeah.
blood.
All right, I'll see. All right, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's gonna do it for this episode of Sports Vibe. So we will see you next week.